At first, The Devil Wears Prada 2 looks like a straightforward legacy sequel. Bigger fashion drama, older characters, same runway chaos. But the more you think about the ending, the more it starts feeling like this movie was never really about fashion in the first place. Underneath all the glamour, magazine politics, and power struggles, there's actually a much darker conversation happening about journalism, corporate culture, and what happens when creative spaces become nothing more than business assets. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to Movizo, your go-to spot for everything movies, web series, and entertainment news. Today we're diving deep into The Devil Wears Prada 2, not just the ending itself, but what the film is really trying to say underneath all the designer outfits and runway drama. And honestly, the deeper you look at this movie, the more interesting it gets. So here's where the story begins. Nearly 20 years after the original film, Andy Sachs is now a respected journalist. She's successful, experienced, and clearly passionate about her work. And then suddenly, her entire newspaper staff gets fired after a corporate restructuring. On the exact same day, they win awards for their journalism. Most viewers probably saw this as a quick plot device to push Andy back toward runway, but the scene actually says a lot more than that. A newsroom full of talented people gets erased overnight by executives who don't really understand or care about the work being done there. And honestly, that feels uncomfortably real, because that's basically been happening across modern media for years now. Entire publications disappear while executives talk about efficiency and restructuring, like creativity can just be reduced to numbers on a spreadsheet. That opening matters more than it first seems, because it explains almost every decision Andy makes later in the film. She doesn't go back to runway because she misses the fashion world. She goes back because she refuses to watch another creative institution slowly get hollowed out from the inside. This is where the movie quietly reveals what it's really about. After Irv dies, his son Jay takes control of the company, and suddenly Runway's future starts looking unstable. Jay talks constantly about optimization, cutting departments, and making the magazine more profitable. But notice what he never talks about. He never talks about the people working there, or the magazine's identity, or why Runway mattered in the first place. To him, it's just another asset. And then there's Benji, Emily's wealthy fiancé, who gets involved in the ownership battle later in the story. When he explains his philosophy to Miranda, he's basically arguing that progress means tearing older systems down and replacing them with something newer and more efficient. The movie is being pretty intentional here. Both Jay and Benji represent a very specific type of modern corporate mindset, financially powerful people who don't necessarily hate creativity, but also don't really value it unless it's profitable. And that's what makes them dangerous. Not cruelty, not evil, just complete emotional detachment from the actual craft happening inside Runway. The film's real villain isn't hatred, it's indifference. And honestly, that's a way sharper observation than you'd normally expect from a mainstream sequel like this. Now here's the detail that completely changes how you look at the movie afterward. Near the end, we learn that Nigel was actually the person who convinced Irv and Jay to bring Andy back into Runway before the story even began. He believed she could help save the magazine. And once you realize that, the entire film starts looking different. Because every major event in the story only happens because Nigel quietly took a chance on someone he believed in. Without that decision, Andy never returns, Miranda loses control, departments get cut, Runway probably becomes another empty corporate brand. And the craziest part is that Nigel himself had one of the most unstable positions in the entire company. He had just as much to lose as everyone else, maybe more. But he still chose to protect the magazine instead of protecting himself. The movie doesn't spend a huge amount of time emphasizing that reveal, which honestly makes it hit even harder once it clicks. That's not just random backstory, it's basically the emotional core of the entire film. So let's talk about the ending itself. Andy and Miranda eventually work together to contact Benji's ex, Sasha, who ends up purchasing the magazine and keeping Runway under Miranda's control. The corporate takeover fails, the magazine survives, and surprisingly, almost everyone gets a happy ending. Miranda keeps Runway. Andy rediscovers her purpose, Nigel finally gets public recognition from Miranda during the fashion show. Even Emily, whose own secret plans completely collapse, ends the movie on genuinely good terms with Andy. Now sure, some people are probably going to say the ending wraps things up a little too perfectly. But I honestly think the movie does that intentionally. Because the ending isn't really about realism. It's about the idea that creative spaces only survive when the people inside them stop acting purely out of self-interest. Every character who succeeds in the final act chooses collaboration over personal ambition at some point. And every character who loses treats runway like a transaction instead of something worth protecting. That's the actual message hiding underneath the fashion drama surface. Personally, I think The Devil Wears Prada 2 is doing something much smarter than people are giving it credit for. On the surface, it's a fun legacy sequel with familiar characters, fashion politics, and nostalgic callbacks. But underneath all of that, the film feels genuinely frustrated with the way modern creative industries operate now, especially journalism and media. It's talking about layoffs, about corporations stripping identity out of creative work, about wealthy executives making decisions about industries they barely understand. And somehow it manages to explore all of that inside a glossy fashion drama sequel. That's probably why the movie sticks with people more than they expected. Even when the story gets dramatic or exaggerated, the emotions underneath it feel weirdly real. And honestly, that's what makes the ending worth talking about. So what do you think? Did The Devil Wears Prada 2 actually earn its happy ending, or did it resolve things a little too neatly? And do you think the film's commentary on modern media really worked? Let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more updates like this. This is